literally never tried to tell my story for somebody's entertainment. Ever. However, the people who listen to my story are here for entertainment. They're here because they're sickos who are in love with death. Or their lives are so fucking pathetic because they don't stick up for anybody else or speak up for anybody else, but they want somebody they can bitch at. Many of the people who offered to help me, they didn't ever intend on actually helping me. What they wanted is a friend in many of these situations, like Girl Interrupted. She wants people to hear her story, but she's not sharing theirs. When she did finally make a video, it was such bullshit. It also showed that she couldn't remember anything. She's just there watching my panic attacks. That's what she's doing. I'm treated like I can't be autistic because I'm intelligent. And I can't be intelligent because I'm autistic. And then you ignore the autism and you pretend I'm schizophrenic. You ignore Tourette syndrome and you pretend that it's drug use. Meanwhile, there's plenty of people that could have spoken up about that. My mom and my dad should have spoken up right from the fucking very start. But when did they ever get to know me? I mean, growing up, they were interested in drugs. That was it. Now, we've gotten to hear from a lot of the people who work at these establishments where I've had fucking panic attacks and meltdowns over people being fucking assholes just because I'm homeless. I haven't done anything wrong to these people, and it is immoral and illegal for them to take advantage of me or to harm me or to deny me service because of disabilities. You're not allowed to do that to somebody in a wheelchair, and if somebody in a wheelchair is abused, you can see if they're in a wheelchair. A lot of you will speak up because you know you have the moral ground. Not necessarily. I knew a guy in Boulder who was in a wheelchair. He got into a fight because he was trying to molest a little girl. You think everybody in a wheelchair is in a wheelchair because they got a spinal injury? No, not always. Sometimes they got shrapnel injuries. Sometimes they never get a girlfriend because people just assume that, well, their penis don't work. But when you got some dude in a wheelchair literally fondling a little girl on Pearl Street, yeah, people are going to beat his ass. Oh, and by the way, they did. Also, by the way, the cops did show up to that incident. Did they take that guy in the wheelchair away? No, they didn't. His wheelchair was broken. Everybody stood there and watched him drag his wheelchair almost 30 feet before the officer said they were sorry that happened to him and helped him back into his chair. They didn't arrest him. The mother was screaming fucking hysterically, how fucking dare you fucking help that motherfucker? You fucking drag his ass to the fucking prison where he belongs. Shit like that. What ended up happening? They helped this dude get into his broken wheelchair, helped to set up his broken wheelchair. They even paid to fix the broken wheelchair. Yeah. He should have been given a hospital issue wheelchair instead of some $3,200 thing. He should have been in an alpha ward for molesting a little girl. Now that doesn't really stick out in my mind as much as a lot of the other situations because I didn't know the dude in the wheelchair. And I didn't know the little girl that he molested. In a lot of these other cases, I do know the victims. However, their credibility with me went way the fuck down the tubes. When the things that they claimed happened to them, they never came forward with. Never made any attempt to come forward with me. So, I do have a problem believing any of these people. Chris Stafford, his name is on my YouTube channel. I went back and was listening to some of the videos, and yeah, he says his name more than once. Also, when he says he doesn't want to be recorded, I usually take the phone back to my car now because it doesn't always stop recording just because I want it to. I'm sure you guys have seen, like, on a hot day like today, I might have to press the end button 5 or 6 times before it works. Or I might have to literally turn my phone off and let it cool down, turn it back on, and then try to rejoin the video so I can shut it down. My predators have had access to the materials to make my life a living hell for a long time. And they've been able to deny me access to any of those resources for myself through slander and harassment, and doing so as a group. Now, Chris Stafford, the situation that happened last night, yeah, that legit happened. It's legit recorded. But some of the stuff, it doesn't make any sense to me. I explain to people that if I'm not able to be heard, if only your voice is going to be heard, then I'll just speak up on YouTube or Facebook where I can't be interrupted. I can say it nicely to your face, or I can say it mean on the internet. Usually I do it twice on the internet. Once in a nice video, and once in a not so nice video. Once in a video where I try to explain things as well as I can given my current situation. And once where I'm a complete and total asshole. That's right, I'm a dick on the internet. Just so you know, I'm a dick in real life. Rand Ingersoll was pissed off because when she was beating on somebody else's kids, I spoke up and I turned her in. Of course she was pissed off. Who wouldn't be? She got busted. I get in trouble for trying to turn in my predators. I also get in trouble if I do any of the things my predators do to me. If I do any of those things back, I get in trouble. I'll be told by law enforcement and all these different agencies that what people are doing to me is not illegal. Guaranteed if I do it, they'll come and arrest me. Three of the charges alone in Chapel, Nebraska, they only dropped the charges because the police officers had told me repeatedly that it was not illegal for Robert Franklin Warnick to do certain things. That it was not illegal for Christopher Kurth to do certain things. That it was not illegal for many of my predators to do certain things. So when I did them back and they charged me, they showed bias. Of course they had to drop the fucking charges. The most fucked up part is that the crimes that I actually committed, these people ignored altogether. Mostly. That's because if they hadn't ignored it, their body cams would have been admissible as evidence. And it would have lent credibility to me. Hey, how you doing? Oh, long week. I think I pissed off about everybody in town by now. Absolutely. Something about the tweakers here, thinking I hate tweakers. I don't. I hate the twack. There's also a lot of alcoholics here who think I hate alcoholics.
There's a whole band of them that are homeless and go around bumming money for alcohol.
Yep, absolutely. And I've contributed to them a few times because sometimes if they don't get what they want, they'll go trash stuff here, and that makes it bad for all of us. Even if we're not on drugs, even if we don't drink alcohol, it does make us all look bad, and they do judge all of us for it. Sorry, I got my foot holding the door. I wasn't trying to swing it at you.
You're not open today, huh?
The Dutch Bros? I'm not sure what happened there. It was open, and then they put all those signs up. So maybe something broke or the power went out. They look like they're looking through a junction line there.
Yeah.
I think that's what that'd be, going to the Dutch Bros sign. That'd be a, what do they call that? A T junction?
Yeah.
Goes to the building and goes to the Dutch Brothers sign. That's a lot of the times when they put in little flowery areas, it's so they can hide the control box. Although they're not supposed to have them on the ground anymore, especially in low-lying swampland like this. It's supposed to be elevated 6 foot. None of the electrical boxes I've seen here are 6 foot off the ground, though. They're about 3.5, which is standard elsewhere, where they don't have flooding. We got better stuff, though, now. A lot of our sealants will last 30 years, so you don't have to worry too much about the water.
My friend paid $100,000 to have his electric put on the ground from the pole, and they still have a wire that runs it on the outside. All that money for extension cord.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it amounts to. They started making a bunch of real freaky laws about wells in Nebraska, like no open wells, and if you have an open well, you're not allowed to turn it into a closed well anymore. But a lot of the funky laws that they have, it's just because it costs $25,000 to drill down to the water.
California, they want to start charging you for pulling the water out of your well.
Well, that's nasty. Of course, with their water levels, I understand at least a little bit, but look at all the money that they're spending and all the water that's going to, industrial use and to Nestle Quick, or Nestle, I should say. It's not just Nestle, though. There's like over 60 water bottling companies in the state of California. That's a lot.
Arrowhead, all that. No, this is a faucet.
I've been trying to get people to work together down here, but a lot of people, they're not capable. They've been screwed over too many times. They trusted too many people that are also in desperate situations. And they may have been your best friend for 5 years, but that one day where they know that you got that $800 in your backpack and they're going to watch your backpack for a few hours, you can trust them, but they got a call a week ago that their kid is missing or their kid is sick in Florida, and the next thing you know, you come back from a job interview, your backpack's still there, but your money's gone and he's gone. And then the next person that needs help, you're like, fuck you, I'm tired of getting ripped off. Even your best friend will rip you off out here. Oh my God. It's a Ural. Ha! The Urals, when they made those, their production line, they built them with the sidecars on.
Yeah, with it.
Yeah. Now they have Urals that don't have sidecars, and you get conversion kits for them. But yeah, pretty cool. That's an original too. I'd venture to say that's probably early 80s or so.
Yeah, early 80s. Well, I got my boss the other day, so I'm trying to avoid it. Going over there.
Over what? Oh, at the
shop.
Yeah, I've been having problems with a lot of people out here either getting violent or talking violent. I explain to them that scares me, and then they do it more. Kind of like when I explain to people when somebody uses the N-word, I say, I don't like that word. So then they want to go into a 5-minute detail about how it's okay because there's N-words of every race and stuff like that. Yeah. It's not like it's some little piddly thing that I'm getting offended over. It's hatred towards other human beings. I don't want people treating all homeless people that way. I sure as hell ain't gonna stand for them doing it to black folks.
Okay, no shit.
Exactly. Be safe. Anyway, a lot of the people who've been predatory towards me didn't mean to begin with. They just weren't willing to admit that they screwed up. Let me tell you the people who admitted that they screwed up. Mandy Singer admitted that she screwed up. Mandy Hughes admitted that she screwed up. Mariah, God, what's her last name? Mariah Johnson admitted that she screwed up. There's a guy named Tanner admitted that he screwed up. He screwed up real bad, but I barely know the dude. And he's friends with some of my predators, and he apologized. Dakota Cooper admitted that he screwed up. Dylan Bauer admitted that he screwed up. Lots of people admitted that they screwed up. Lots of people that I would never expect to admit that they screwed up. Like Tyler Crabtree, I never would have expected him to admit that he screwed up, especially like after as fucked up as he was and as fucked up things that he did, and the fact that I did in fact go to the police about it. You know, I expected him to be far more antagonistic and to get his friends involved, like a lot of people do. See, they get their friends involved when I try to turn them in. They get their friends involved in harassing me. And then, of course, it's not their fault. It's not their fault their friend did that. They didn't make their friend do that. They just lied to their friend hoping their friend would do that. Now, Chris Stafford, he kind of sort of understands a little bit of it, just a little bit more now. But with all these people, they don't understand my panic attacks or what they're over because of the listening thing. I'm scared shitless. I can't function because of it. I'm scared shitless that without the money that was my back pay for fucking being disabled my entire goddamn life, when I was denied any of the rights of a disabled person and victimized over and over because I am in fact disabled, and people can tell. They can tell that I'm different. A lot of autistic people who are on the spectrum, are proud to be weirdos. But it's weirdos in a different sense than the way you use it. A lot of times we get to hear people say, "Oh, Sean, my cousin is real autistic. He's fully autistic." What do they mean by that? They mean that he doesn't speak and he shits himself as a grown man. That's what they mean. We're not all like that. Not all autistic people are immodal and shit themselves. Immodal means that they don't speak. Don't speak, I know what you're thinking, and I don't need your reasons. Don't tell me 'cause it hurts, 'cause there's no real ending once we start pretending who we are. I get that people have their own lives and that life happens. If I'm there for those situations, I can verify those situations because I was there. If you asked me for help and I wasn't able to help for whatever reason, if the police say you didn't try to get help and the people wouldn't help you because of the way that you act, you're goddamn right I'll speak up. Is it that I'm not helping Chris because of the way that he acts? No, that's not it at all. I'll help Chris how I can. Last night, I was really glad that he called the cops. He said, "I don't call the cops. Cops are bad." They're not going to help us. We're poor. A lot of people have pointed that out and stated that. But then the middle class pretends that we're all liars, that every single poor person is living the same delusion. Well, obviously, not every single poor person. There are lots of pretty blonde haired, blue eyed white girls who were born into poverty or into impoverished families that did great for themselves as gold diggers. When I vent on Facebook and on YouTube, I make angry for a reason. Because I am scared. And the only reason that you guys pay any attention to me is because I fucking screamed at the top of my lungs for help and fucking cursed. You all blow me off unless I act like one of my predators. And then you'll listen. But if I have a panic attack or a mental breakdown from abuse, then you'll treat me like I'm a predator. Y'all are completely fucking confused about the situations that we're all in. You don't register in your head that we're all in this together. We're all getting fucked by the same people and all using personal experiences as an excuse not to work together with the other victims. Thank goodness black people are not that stupid. Thank goodness every black person out there having to endure this is aware that they're not the only person enduring it. They're certainly not the only black person enduring it. That's why they push the BLM thing. Because this does happen to black people at a significantly higher rate, specifically due to poverty and homelessness. These black people are not choosing to be criminals. They're forced into it by an unceasing and never-ending government that demands more and more from its peoples. You get to see how when one person is victimized into homelessness, how people just don't give a shit. If they gave a shit, that person would have never ended up homeless. Now with Chris, he talks about some of his experiences, but his experiences are going to be different than mine. This is his place. This is his place of superiority. He is superior here. He's been here pretty much his whole life. Grew up here, went to school here, has kids here. His life is here. My life was in Boulder. The only place where I was ever allowed to be me. The only place where my life wasn't non-stop victimization and people ignoring me, before or since. Boulder was the one place where I was allowed to be the weirdo that I am. And yeah, sure, I had to deal with a lot of those other freaky weirdos. A lot of those sickos. Sicko is a lot better word for them. Weirdo does not do them justice, and it doesn't do us justice. How much do I like Chris? A lot. I like Dallas Palmer a lot. I like these people a lot. What scares me is them not understanding the importance of my disabilities and how easy I am to take advantage of. Because I'm intelligent, I can't be taken advantage of in their minds, but that's where the mentally ill tag comes in. Farnsworth's sister and mother wanted to say, "Oh, he's mentally ill," as an excuse. Why I should allow Farnsworth to do those things. Meanwhile, his diagnoses are a lot scarier than mine. He's actually been diagnosed as schizophrenic and delusional, which you guys pretend makes us violent. No. No. A mentally ill person is over 30 times more likely to be assaulted than to be the one doing the assaulting. Over 30 times more likely. In some places, it's only 11 times more likely. Ah, well, okay. Maybe I should move to those areas, right? Now, it turns out that in those areas, it's not that those people are victimized less, it's they're not allowed to turn anything in. when I make my angry videos. It's because that's what gets you to listen. That's what gets you to look. Oh, look, he's crazy. He's screaming at the top of his lungs for help. He's cursing and yelling and blaming everybody but himself. Oh, no, I blame me too. I certainly blame me too. There's a lot of people I blame for Natalie's death. I'm one of them. If I'd have just killed myself instead of being her friend, she might still be alive. If I'd have killed myself instead of leaving Virginia, Natalie might still be alive. If I'd have blown my brains out like I intended to, Natalie might still be alive. If I was able to convince somebody to help me to turn it in instead of talking over me, or to help me end my life instead of talking over me, things would be different. When you go to your friends and family for help and they don't do anything but blow you off and talk about themselves and tell you to do things you're not capable of, and you try to explain that you're not capable and why, and they want to argue with you as if you're not trying, they won't look at any of the efforts that you've made. They're just running with their assumptions, and it's hurtful. Chris does that. He doesn't intend it as an evil thing. He doesn't do it to be fucking mean to me. He does it because he doesn't understand, and also because he's got his own trauma in his life. Now, I should call it drama. That's what I should call it. But the reality is, no. Fearing for your kids is a very legitimate fucking fear. See, that's why people like Sarah Bacon, who are playing fucking head games, why I still listened and still spoke up. Because she was telling me that people were threatening her and her kids and her husband, telling me that they could handle it. But I got treated like I was a liar when I spoke up about that, about how Sarah Bacon and Nick Bacon and their kids had their lives threatened. And Cara Rogers, a.k.a. Caramia, how she was letting me know that people were threatening her kids. Same thing with Candace Bondurant, how she was afraid for her kids. But did any of these people come forward with me to turn it in? No, literally none of them made the effort. None of them made any effort to help me to turn it in. None of them helped me to set up a GoFundMe either. Carl Rogers set up a GoFundMe, but it wasn't for me. I never got a penny of that money. But to this day, I get treated by these web sleuth groups like I fleeced a bunch of people out of their money. None of you stop to understand how much harm I endure over people's opinions. And that includes yours. That includes Chris's. Chris's opinion that, well, by his actions, he shows that my words and my experiences don't matter. By his words, he understands that I'm not some schizophrenic nut job. But that's how the police are going to play it off, even though prior, the police wanted to play it off as if I'm not disabled. Anything they can do is an excuse to blow us off, and meanwhile, there's people who have to go in alone. Chris wanted to type at me about his problems last night. He's absolutely right. Those problems did happen. He typed that he was sorry. Of course, he's pissed off at me because of what we both typed to each other this morning. I understand why he's pissed off. I don't agree with it. When you do something that pushes somebody to commit suicide, and it's an action that is well known and well documented to be exactly what it is that pushes people to suicide. 80% of men who commit suicide, this is just the percentage that we have documented. 80% of the men who committed suicide told somebody before doing so. 80% of the time. 100% of the time, the reason that they commit suicide is because the person that they went to blew them off. They were too busy. Last night, If he hadn't called the cops, I probably would have. Not because she was threatening to kill herself, but because she was threatening to take the kids with her. How many women this month? I went back through some of my screenshots and some of the stuff that popped up on my news feed last night. 11 different women in the last month have murdered their children and themselves nationwide. That's across the whole country. That's only the ones that we were made aware of. 11 times in 1 month, women have killed their children. They don't always kill themselves, but those children are certainly dead. When I let you know that something that you are doing is pushing me to suicide, it's not just me that pushes to suicide. You treat all men that way, and that's why all men are at risk of suicide. Sure, there are some men that are better looking than others, and they get better treatment. A good-looking male is more likely to get a job, even if his boss is a heterosexual male. His boss is more likely to hire somebody who is good-looking than to hire somebody with no hair on top and a beard. They're more likely to hire somebody without glasses. Also, although glasses are commonly associated with librarians, whether you do or do not wear glasses does not show any significant increase in intelligence. But it does show a marked decrease in education. That's because you don't always have your glasses on. You can't always read and see the world around you. So there's a lot of things that you miss just because you can't see it. Thank goodness you have hearing. When you've got your glasses on, it makes it better. You can read those road signs. You know, the sign that you just passed says, Exit 69, Lodgepole, Nebraska. Right? You know, the sign before that was for Colton and Snow, and the one before that was for Sydney. That's where Cabela's is. And the one after that is Chapel. The one after Lodgepole is Chapel, Nebraska. Now, if you don't have your glasses on, you're not going to know the names of any of the towns. You're not going to know any of the businesses that are there. It's just a fuzz at a distance because you're the passenger. When you're driving, you have to wear your glasses, though. And then you pay better attention and you can see more. Ears are the same. When I was growing up, the kids that we had the most problem with getting violent were the deaf kids. Sometimes the deaf kids would pull out their hearing aids because it hurt their ears. Just like a lot of kids in class would take off their glasses and rub their nose. Especially in the 80s when the glasses were still made out of glass. They were heavy. Now, why did those deaf kids end up being the most violent kids in special ed in almost every place I was at? They take out their hearing aids, and of course, when they have their hearing aids, sometimes they talk a little bit more nasal, but they're able to enunciate better, and they do kind of sound like this. Not all of them, just most of them. It's because for the most part in their life, they didn't understand what people were saying because they couldn't hear it, and so they didn't develop the speech that way. But then, of course, when he's not wearing his hearing aid, or she's not wearing her hearing aid, it's difficult for a deaf person to even understand their own voice, even though there is some resonance through your head, because as you speak, it resonates to your eardrum through your face, as well as the sound waves going around your face to reach your ears. You're hearing sound. For deaf people, there's a few different contraptions that were used around the turn of the last century. The very beginning of the last century, I should say. Some of those inventions include a stick. What is a stick being used as a hearing aid for? Well, they came out with this thing called a sonophone. Very cool contraption. And there's a guy named Thomas Edison. He's famous for something. Anyway, Edison took a stick, and right here on the back of his skull, you can feel it. Right here, there's a knob just behind your ear. Right there. When he wanted to listen to music, he'd turn in that sonophone and he would put a stick on it. And he would put that part of the stick behind his ear on that bone. And he could hear the music. A lot of those deaf kids, when they didn't have their hearing aids in, sometimes it didn't register to them that they didn't have their hearing aid in. Sometimes there was such relief of not having their hearing aid in, and they're used to having their own internal monologue and not necessarily hearing it externally. A lot of times you've got a kid he's trying to tell you something that he thinks is important. He's not wearing his hearing aid though, so he doesn't have that assistance of hearing his voice quite as well. You're trying to figure out what he's saying, but you don't have any idea. So you're trying to show him I don't know what you're saying. You're not wearing your hearing aid. And then there's the one thing that everybody understands. Fuck you, asshole! Fuck you! Fuck you! Don't make fun of me! And they're screaming this at you. Obviously, they're saying, fuck you, asshole, stop making fun of me. I'm not making fun of you. You don't have your hearing aid in, so I can't understand you, and I don't speak sign language. I did try to learn sign language because there was a teacher's aide that we had who spoke sign language. This is at, hold on a second, what school was that? It was a middle school in Washington State, and we had a teacher who had rats in the classroom and a snake. And I think she also had a chinchilla run around the cage. And I don't remember her name, but I remember the teacher's aide, her name was Kelly. And she was specifically assigned to the one deaf kid that we had in our class. This is in Washington State. But Kelly wasn't always there. She had some health issues. And when she wasn't there, that's when we always had kid with the one deaf kid in our class. I think his name was Brandon. Don't quote me on that. I remember Kelly, because even though she was his aide, she helped all of us out because he could flip out at any fucking time. Because he's angry because people don't understand him. You know, just because somebody is able to speak and enunciate and is able to hear doesn't mean that they're being heard either. Just because the words are coming out of their mouth doesn't mean that the other person is registering it. When I tell people that I have disabilities, they want to tell me to go do a bunch of things. Well, why don't you find out what my disabilities are and why I have them? How about we do something about that? With Chris, just like with anybody else, I make the nice videos and I make the angry videos. I don't really feel like making an angry video today. Now, when you go to somebody for help over and over and over again, and every time they blow you off, even if they do it nicely, even if they intend well, but they're busy talking over you and making suggestions before they know what's going on. Before the Hoover Dam was built, they had to go and find the right site for it. They had to get geologists to go out there and test the soil, find out if it was going to erode around the dam, if it was mostly rock or if it was mostly loose soil. Imagine the person who wanted to build the Hoover Dam saying, hey, I got to build a dam. Could you help me? Oh, well, you could probably throw a couple of logs down and call it good. No, we got to build it. a big dam. You're a geologist. I'll pay you to be a geologist and come out and test this area. Oh no, this is what you need to do. Well, I'm not a geologist. Telling me what to do doesn't give me your knowledge. It doesn't give me your professional knowledge or expertise. You're sending a layman out there to do a professional's job. Now, you might not be somebody who's important, but let's say Mr. Rockefeller. Everybody knew his name. Let's say Mr. Rockefeller speaks up and tells that geologist, hey, this guy's legit. We got to build the Hoover Dam. We need a geologist. Oh, you're serious? That's seriously Mr. Rockefeller. Yeah, I'm on board. Yeah, I'll do my job as a geologist, and I'll take your money for doing the job that I went to school for. But when it's just some little nobody, who knows the name of the project foreman on the Hoover Dam? How many of you? Who fucking cares? We know who J. Edgar Hoover is. That's good enough, right? We know that it's a big dam. That's good enough, right? We know it's famous for some reason. It's famous for being fucking huge. That's what it's famous for. It's famous for the number of people who fucking died in its construction. Most of the people who died in the construction of the Hoover Dam are entombed in the Hoover Dam. Now, because of the thickness and the weight of cement, if they pour a cement pour that's 3 meters high, that's 9 feet tall, that's literally enough to crush your body into paste. Your bones and all. Crushed instantly. There's no reason to try digging a body out of that. You're not going to find a body. What you're going to find is some pink cement. Maybe a couple of bone fragments. My predators get away with not doing their jobs as mandated reporters by pretending that I am crazy and not credible, therefore. So they don't have to look at my evidence. They can just send me around in circles pretending it's someone else's job. Every single one of these mandated reporters knows that sending me on to somebody else because they don't want to do their job as a mandated reporter is, in fact and indeed, a felony. In the state of Oregon, state of Nebraska, state of Colorado, state of Wyoming. There's also a lot of other states. New Jersey is one of those states, but I've never been to New Jersey. I've been to the other ones. For one mandated reporter to not do their job as a mandated reporter is just a misdemeanor. For them to pass the buck is a felony. For the people they send me to, if I am trying to turn in those people, and I have told them that I'm trying to turn in those people, because they are, in fact and indeed, breaking the law, what's to stop them from playing victim? They will be heard by the police, just like the police will be heard by them, but the victim will not be. They will not follow the law when it comes to mandated reporter for an at-risk and disabled male on the streets. It's just not going to happen unless somebody gives a shit. And when I try to explain that to people, they say, oh, well, here's my time when I was homeless. Chris's experience from being homeless here was here in his hometown. I was homeless in Chapel, Nebraska. That place fucking sucked to be homeless in. But it's not the same being homeless in Chapel, Nebraska after the death of Natalie Bollinger and it being all over the news. It's not the same going to my friends' houses there after the death of Natalie Bollinger. People didn't care what was true and what wasn't. They just wanted to hide. Sure, people would still pretend sort of to be my friends as long as I hid the fact that we was friends. Well, then we're not really friends if I have to hide it. That's not a real friend if I have to pretend that you don't exist. I'm only your friend when you can do it in the dark, in your closet, with the lights off and all the doors locked, and then we can have a conversation as friends. Sort of, because you're just going to talk over me. With Chris, he's got a lot of experiences that are valid. And because those experiences are valid, he's still important, even if I'm pissed at him. There's also the fact that things do happen in his life, same as mine. When things happen in my life, people don't try to understand the way that I am expected to understand. Yes, Chris was condescending this morning when he typed at me about how he's sorry that he had problems of his own last night. I was here for his problems. They're legit. He's got evidence. He showed the evidence. He said he wasn't going to call the cops. And yeah, I peer pressured him into calling the cops. And when he was done calling the cops, he said, I told you. Told you they were useless. Told you they wouldn't show up. Told you they wouldn't do their jobs. Told you they didn't care. Told you. I know. And you're a broke folk who can't afford rent, which is why they get away with doing that. The fact that I was there means that I can speak up in court. The fact that I paid attention means that I can speak up in court. But then again, he's got to lend credibility to my voice. Having someone there last night prevented me from getting victimized the way that I am often. When Chris is here, Christian doesn't stop. I like Christian. He's nice. He's also an addict who doesn't keep his word. Now, there's been a couple of occasions where Chris kept his word, but not on the really important things, and I tried to explain that to him. But here in the modern world, you can't tell somebody that they did something that hurts you without them getting defensive and butthurt and pretend like you're a horrible person who's blaming them. Now, thank goodness Chris didn't do that to me, but a lot of other people did. That's the point where I start blaming them. You know, it wasn't your fault that bad shit happened to me. It's your choice for it to continue happening to me because you're not going to step in and do anything. I like Chris. After speaking with Tyler Crabtree, I like Tyler Crabtree. Yes, I know about his addictions. Now with Tyler Crabtree, yeah, I will probably use the word addict, and I will probably use the word junkie, both. Like I said, I try to make 2 videos. One where I'm calm and collective, and one where I am screaming and hateful, because that's what you're going to pay attention to. Maybe if you see enough of my hateful videos, maybe you'll go back and start looking for the ones where I'm talking as calmly as I can. But you can tell in all of them that I'm suffering from sensory overload. Now, all of these services here are predatory towards homeless. Whether they're disabled or not, whether they're male, whether they're female, the fact is that they're going to help those in houses, specifically those from Tillamook. A lot of people in Tillamook, they don't want their taxpayer dollars going to help these hobos, so they end up spending 10 times more taxpayer dollars every year to keep the low man down. When I explain to people that the actions that they're committing to with me are the exact actions that put people in the ground, the exact actions that men commit suicide over. Last night, some of the stuff that Chris had to deal with is exactly the kind of stuff that men commit suicide over. He was getting the same treatment last night that I've been getting for a lot of years from a lot of people. But I don't have kids with any of those people. And I didn't have to worry about losing my parental rights for turning in the predators of any of the children who were being harmed. Because none of them were my children. None of them. I made decisions based on the safety of children, and that's how most of these women manipulated me and manipulated others. Oh, my children, my children, my children. Yeah, sure, I did something wrong, but I've got an excuse. My children, my children, my children. Really, you wanted to play that people were threatening your children shit for a long time, Sarah Bacon and Cara Rogers. But you never spoke up about that. And when I got treated like I'm some schizophrenic nut job who made you people up, you made every excuse not to come forward still. With Chris, I've been trying to get him to do something I've been trying to get a lot of people to do. Take a look at the abuse that I've endured and how long it's been going on. And how the kind of help that people want to provide is not the help I need. But if you're not looking at the evidence, you're not going to know that. Does Chris know that I make angry videos? Yes, he does. I tell him that I do. I also send him links to them. Not that he's going to watch them. He doesn't have much time. With Tyler Crabtree, you know what I like the most about him? It's the fact that he is fine with having his fucked up ass on my channel. That's right, he exposed his ass in public, broad daylight, on public property, while fucked up on drugs, harassing a homeless person that never did nothing wrong to him, who was a customer at the library. And he did fucked up shit to me. But he doesn't want it taken down. He doesn't care if it's up. Kind of like with Jaden. Jaden said, hey, I said what I said. That's right, Jaden, you did. And I'm holding you to it. A lot of people, after repeatedly interrupting me to tell me that they would kill somebody or they would beat somebody up or they'd go smash somebody's face in or run them over with a car, they went to say, oh, I wouldn't really do that. I just was venting. Well, lucky you get to vent. Lucky my predators, they get to vent. I don't get to vent. When you're angry at me and you want to get gruff and pissed off and irate, I'm not allowed to defend myself against it. When you do something that's hurtful to me and I say something, rather than taking it to heart, the majority of you go out of your way to do that exact thing over and over and over again and pretend like I'm a bad person for having the reaction to it that I told you I'd have. I know myself better than you because I'm stuck with myself all the time. I also admit to my faults and my wrongs. I also tell people why it is that I do fucked up things to them. I don't. I give them a taste of equality. A tiny taste. If I treated Shea Burton the way that I've been treated for the last 7 years, Shea Burton would have fucking killed herself already. Nicole Van Duzer would have killed herself. Devin Cockerill would have killed herself. James Payton would have killed himself. Peter Payton would have killed himself. John Payton would have killed himself. Jamie Curtis would have killed herself. Christine Buhey did kill herself. Anna Hunka likely got beaten to death. Blunt force trauma to the head. It was caused by a seizure, though. Fran Ingersoll's dead as a fucking doornail. Anna Hunka's dead as a doornail. Natalie Bollinger's dead as a fucking doornail. Stephen McMillion's dead as a fucking doornail. Janine Barrett, dead as a fucking doornail. There's a lot of dead people. Tommy Gallia, dead as a doornail. Brian Farmer's dead as a doornail. A lot of people are dead. Benjamin Harvey, dead as a doornail. I'm not supposed to have any emotional reaction to any of these deaths. I'm expected to be a man and not show emotion. And then you pretend that men don't have emotions. No, you fucking harm us if we show any emotion other than what you want us to show. If we don't get the hint that because you're fucking drunk and stupid that we're supposed to beat up some guy you're starting shit with, it's fucked up. When people want to tell me their perspective, that's fine. But if I don't get to tell my experience, because they're too busy telling me their assumptions, that's what they're progressing. They're progressing their assumptions. The longer it goes on that they don't listen to me, the more likely I am to have a panic attack. The more they interrupt me while I'm trying to tell them what's going on, the more likely I am to have a panic attack. If I have a panic attack over people not listening, they'll pretend I'm a predator, I'm dangerous, I'm harmful. I'm out to get people. Jaden, he's alive, isn't he? I've had the means and ability to kill him. I've made no attempt to do so. Between killing him and speaking up, I'd rather speak up. As far as Dallas Palmer goes, or Casey, or what's that other girl's name? Claire Jordan. Between going out of my way to harm and kill them because they didn't do what I wanted right when I wanted, and telling the truth about what happened, I told the truth about what happened. There's a lot of people that I have to try to sugarcoat shit for them, hoping that they'll listen so that I don't have to fucking have a mental goddamn breakdown over them talking over me. Why do men commit suicide? Because they're not heard. 80% of the time when a man commits suicide, he went to somebody before committing suicide. Why do men commit suicide? Because when we're abused, nobody fucking cares. Nobody listens. We just need to man up. It's our fault for being there. We chose it. We chose it. We chose it. How many of my predators have tried telling me that I chose for them and their friends to harm me? Oh, you chose this, Sean. You chose for me to have fucked up opinions. You chose for me to lie about you, Sean. You chose for me to pretend like you might hurt me. You chose this, Sean. Natalie Bollinger, after spreading rumors that people were harming me over and still are. She wanted to type at me that I chose it. No, I fucking didn't. I didn't choose autism. I didn't choose Tourette syndrome. I didn't choose for you to be on fucking drugs. I didn't choose for you to peer pressure me into going by saying you were going to fucking kill yourself if I didn't. Meanwhile, I do take that shit to heart. The thing that pissed me off the most this morning, when you've tried to get help and people have blown you off to the point where you're begging them to fucking kill you. None of us beg random strangers to kill us. We go to the people who claim that they cared and tell them, hey, I want my life to end now. Please help me to end my life. And there's a reason for that. Those are the people who hurt us the most. It's not our predators who push us to suicide. It's our trusted adult, as McGruff taught us as children. When you're being bullied, what does McGruff teach you? You're supposed to tell your bully how it makes you feel. You're supposed to go to your bully. And if your bullying is because of a rumor, you go to the source of that rumor and you ask him to put a stop to it. But McGruff was a fucking stupid dog. A very stupid cartoon dog that does not live in the real fucking world. In the real world, when you tell somebody that they did something hurtful to you, they get defensive and start playing victim immediately. When they do something fucked up, they're not going to go to the police. They're going to go to their friends and family and have them fuck with you until you have a mental breakdown. And then they're going to use that mental breakdown to pretend like you're a horrible person. They're going to poke you with a stick over and over and over again while you scream for help. And then you're going to get treated like you're a violent monster who's disturbing the peace because you're screaming for help because people are actually fucking harming you. When Chris wanted to type that shit this morning about self-harm, about how fucked up it is, you goddamn right it is, but not in the way that you're saying. It's fucked up that you would ignore the issues that I'm going through and talk over me and tell me that you care. But you're doing all of the things that push men to suicide. This is a national epidemic, folks. And even men don't give a shit. Even men will blow off a man who is suicidal over being blown off. That's what makes us suicidal. When we are harmed, we're not heard. Our voice doesn't matter. Me too, me too, me too doesn't mean that the predators get locked up. It doesn't mean that all of the victims get a voice. Me too is about being sexist, same as the rest of you. You complain that nobody ever helps you, but you're not helping anybody else, are you? Or you want to do it by yourself because that's the manly thing to do, and then you get blown off over and over again because your dumbass wants to try showing how manly you are by doing it yourself, and then you get frustrated and you blow your fucking head off. You go to your friends and family and say, hey, I'm being harmed. And they say, oh, have you tried this place? Have you tried that place? How about not doing that? How about any place that you're going to send me to? You go with me, or you make the call with me, and you make sure that it is taken serious. You verify the fact that I do, in fact, have evidence of long-term abuse by law enforcement and the public over the death of Natalie Bollinger and the subsequent fucking slander. But you have to be willing to look at the evidence instead of talk over the retard. And Chris, despite the fact that he's a nice guy, has a bad habit of talking over the retard. Now, last night, he had legit problems. Am I downplaying his problems? That depends on your perspective. Is he downplaying mine? That depends on your perspective. The reality of the situation is fuck your perspective. Let's look at the evidence. Try looking at it from someone else's shoes. While all of you want to tell me, because you assume that I'm retarded, that I don't get a lot of things that I actually do. I do get them. They just don't make any sense. Neurotypicals are all liars. It is ingrained in their brain to be liars. This is not something that autistic people have ingrained in their brain. It's something that autistic people are taught through your behaviors and through observation of your behaviors. Because you tell us to do one thing, but you have a different set of rules for you. This makes no sense. That's not fucking equality. There aren't very many autistic men or women who agree with the Me Too movement because we're all still being neglected, the men and the women. You want to segregate. The victims want to segregate themselves. Oh, how dare you come forward about police violence? You're white. How dare you come forward about sexual assault? You're a male. How dare you? Meanwhile, according to the law, when I have to turn something in, a friend or family member has to do it with me or it's going to be ignored 100% of the time. So don't be a fuckhead. When I'm telling you this shit and that I've got evidence of it, if you'd have made the fucking call with me, you'd know this shit too. If you'd have looked any of this stuff up instead of just believing what these predators told you, you'd be a lot better off. It's obvious that Chris passed on a lot of opportunities where he got completely fucked because he wanted to assume that the officers, who obviously are all liars and he's aware of it, he wanted to believe that the officers had told him the truth. Big mistake. See, that's why I look up the actual laws instead of just believing whatever the fuck an officer tells me. When they tell you things like that, and it puts you and your family at risk, they are knowingly, willingly, and intelligently committing felonies against you and your family. You can sue the shit out of these fucking pricks. Chris can sue the shit out of these fucking pricks. Brian can sue the shit out of these fucking pricks. Farnsworth and his mom and his sister can sue the fuck out of these pricks. With Robert Farnsworth, he needed to just leave me alone. With cops running around and lying to the homeless community here, lying to a bunch of drug addicts, making me a target for many of those drug addicts. It hurts me a lot, and they don't have any remorse over it. Most of them joined the force because they just wanted to kill somebody. How many of these idiots were veterans of Iraq or Afghanistan that never got to shoot somebody? How many of these people expect special treatment because they killed people in foreign countries, supposedly for our rights that we don't have? A lot of these people, their excuses for not trying is that they don't have any rights either. That's because you do it alone. I'm willing to go in with you and turn this shit in. Are you willing to do the same for me? Probably not. Now, I did intend on making an angry video this morning about Chris, but I decided to make a nice one first. Especially since I absolutely abhor having to do such a thing. I shouldn't have to give somebody a taste of equality so they understand, hey, this doesn't feel good. It is fucking scary. It is bothersome, more than just a little bit. My predators pretended like I might hurt them or their friends or family. They actually did threaten mine. It's not my fault or my choice for these people to gaslight me. Either these things did happen or they lied to me about them. Did Mandy Hughes lie? Or did the cops lie? Did my little sister lie or did the cops lie? Did Chris lie or did the cops lie? Did Scott Scudder lie or did the cops lie? Did Jason Scudder lie or did the cops lie? Did Jared Scudder lie or did the cops lie? Then there's a lot of things that I explain. I'm not allowed to do those things or say those things. So it does bother me when other people do those things. Like when I'm trying to explain that I will be harmed without a friend or family member there and present. And they want to talk about how they would hurt or kill people for doing these things. Meanwhile, people actually did these things to me. A lot of them. I had literally hundreds and hundreds of threats against my life before I ever threatened anybody's life back. And that only happened twice. There was once after my grandmother's funeral where I stated that if anybody hurt any of Natalie Bollinger's family, that I'd go after Ted? Oh yeah, I admitted to that. I still admit to doing that to this day. Why don't you take a look at what the police did? How they forced that situation by not doing their jobs, by not making a report. One of them was Jordan Anderson. There's also the fact that his boss, Scott DaCosta, did everything that he could to help Jordan Anderson get away from those felonies that he committed. That's right, it is a felony what he did. For him to not make a 911 report after a 911 call, that's felonious in the state of Nebraska, especially when it leads to harm or death, which it absolutely did. These people were too invested in trying to shut my voice down so that nobody would believe me. And that's easy to do. That's why you can't be forced to go in alone. When you are an at-risk and disabled adult, you are supposed to have a friend or family member and a caseworker assigned to you. When you tell them about crimes that are committed against you, they are legally required to turn it in immediately. None of these people did that. Even knowing that I was aware of the laws and was spouting to them exactly what the law states, they still wanted to ignore the law and make excuses and manufacture artificial laws that don't actually exist. Any excuse is a good excuse. When an at-risk and disabled adult is being abused, someone else has to turn it in, because an at-risk adult is not a credible witness just because they're called at risk. They're not a credible witness, especially if they're called mentally ill. Their words don't matter, and anyone can harm them at any point in time for any reason whatsoever. Any bias, any hatred, anybody who believes that people who are different or aren't stereotypically perfect should be drowned at birth. You guys don't stop to look at the sheer quantity of hatred that I deal with, and then the "oh, I'm sorries." That's how you help a disabled and homeless man. You ignore the abuse against him, and the best that you'll say is you're sorry. When life comes up and you're not able to keep your word, you expect me to understand, and I'm not allowed to be angry about it. But if I'm not able to keep my word because of what other people did, including yourself, well, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable the other way around, is it? And that's what shows that you don't care about equality, that I'm not a human being to you. When you do things that push a person to suicide, and that person lets you know that what you're doing is literally what pushes people to suicide, and you are willing to send them all of the evidence that shows that, but they want to treat you like you're a bad person because you want your life to end. Oh, how dare you threaten self-harm? It's not self-harm. Cutting on yourself is not self-harm. It's a scream for help. Telling people that you want your life to end, that's not self-harm. It's a cry for help. By the time somebody is telling you they want their life to end, they've already wanted their life to end for months, if not years. And the only reason they don't tell you is because you're not going to be supportive. You're going to send them to somebody else who's not going to be supportive, who gets a government paycheck for a job that you're assuming they're going to do. They're not going to do it unless you get involved, unless you actually care. And if all you care to do is pawn them off, you don't actually care. When the cops say that you can't turn in a crime for somebody else, they're outright lying to you and trying to change your intent and purpose. They're trying to pretend that you're trying to turn something in for somebody else. That's the thing, is you have to do it with the victim. With the victim. And the victim has to have access to that, because the police at any point in time can rape us financially, so we have nothing. So everything we have is taken. It's financial bullshit, running around in fucking circles. I can't fucking take care of myself or fix my fucking vehicle because I'm running around in circles doing errands for everybody else. I fight hard for assisted suicide to be legal for a reason. Natalie Bollinger's friends and family were never going to see her as a human being. They only saw her as a fucking sexual object. And then those sick, perverted fucks did everything they could to protect the predators, just like my own family did. Me and Natalie had a lot in common. We both grew up in the system. We both grew up with parents who chose drugs over their own kids. But she was lucky enough to be pretty and female. So she actually matters. Even if she's the predator, you don't care. She's pretty and female. If Amber came to me today and did something really fucked up to me, would I be able to go to Chris and tell him, hey, that girl that you're in love with and would marry in a heartbeat, as you said at least a dozen times? If I went to Chris and said, hey, dude, she ripped me off for $200, fucking stole a bunch of my evidence and ran around town telling everybody that I was gonna touch her backside, would Chris do something to help turn her in? No, he'd try to deter me from turning her in. Tell me I must have perceived it wrong. Oh, Amanda would never do that. Amanda? The same Amanda who last night was saying that she would, if a man was emotionally cheating on her, that she would go have sex with all of his friends and send him a video of it. That Amanda. I've heard the same shit out of Jamie Curtis. That's what put her on my no list. She was already on my no list, but she wanted to fight hard to try to be put on my yes list because she, of course, her self-worth is based upon whether or not somebody wants to fuck her vagina. I never cared about her vagina. I cared about my friend. I cared about losing my friend. She didn't care about her supposed friend. She would say supportive things sometimes, but most of the time it's the tough love thing, right? We're supposed to understand her emotions and feel sorry for her when she's sad. But if I'm sad, oh, I'm being irrational because I have emotions. Chris has emotions. He gets frustrated. He also makes a lot of assumptions, and he doesn't stop to listen to his assumptions. He says, oh no, those aren't assumptions. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. No, you absolutely did. And if you look at the evidence, you'll realize why. When you want to blow off this kind of abuse against an adult male, you're showing how sexist you are. I want to believe that Chris is actually going to help, but here I am. In order to get his help, I'm putting my life on hold and everything at risk. Then again, what other choice do I have? I need the help. I don't want his fucking help. I don't want him to talk over me every time I try to explain what's going on. I don't want him dismissing my abilities or disabilities every time I try to explain them, but I need help. The term mentally ill denies me every fucking right I have as a human being. When you say, oh, they won't listen to me, I'm called mentally ill too. Really? Because they listened to Natalie Bollinger and Alicia Bollinger and Ted Bollinger, a bunch of fucking predators who are mentally ill. Actually on fucking drugs. And I gotta go to drug dealers and fucking drug addicts who, instead of trying to understand, are gonna make excuses because they want me to feel sorry for a bunch of fucking addicts who don't care about anybody but themselves. When only your words matter and the experience of the victim doesn't. And you're going to repeatedly talk over the victim and tell them that their experience doesn't matter. Only your opinion matters. You don't care about them. You're doing what you can to try to intentionally hurt that person. Kim Jepsen and her mother both did things that pushed people to commit suicide, and they did those things to me. Of course, it wasn't their fault. In all those situations, it's always someone else's decision, isn't it? Like with Miss Peaches, it wasn't her decision to fuck me over when we found out Natalie disappeared. No, it was her mother's choice. Sure. No, that's just because Kayla Trujillo doesn't want to take responsibility for her actions and choices. Like every woman in America, we've taught her that she doesn't have to. She can blame it on men. Meanwhile, it is not safe for me to drive. It has not been safe for me to drive since I was in Virginia. That's when it became unsafe for me to drive. But none of you want to hear that. You want to tell me, oh, you can drive? No, I fucking can't. It's not safe for me to do so. I am in a constant state of panic and fucking scared at all points in fucking time. I am scared that nobody's ever gonna give a shit. They're just gonna do what Chris does. Change the subject and talk about him. I'm expected to understand that things happen in his life. But is he understanding that things happen in mine, or is he going to argue over them as if I'm a retard? How about if I argue with him as if he's a retard? Oh no, dude, you must be perceiving it wrong. No, she's not actually talking about killing herself. Are you sure she's not trying to say that she's afraid you're going to kill her? Yeah, Chris, I can do the same exact thing. I can do the same thing that you do. I can do the same thing that Amanda does, that Mr. Tanner does. I can do the same thing as Tyler does. Not the Tyler over there, of course. I can change the subject and twist your words into something that they ain't. But instead of doing that, I post your words up as they are. Those are your words in your voice. And when I tell you, don't tell me anything that you wouldn't tell the police, I mean it. When I say if you don't go to the police with that information, that I'm going to post it up on YouTube, I mean it. Because I can't go to the police about it alone. And I'm treated like everything that I say is some magic fucking illusion in my head. Meanwhile, we've got hundreds of witnesses recorded on my channel admitting that these aren't fucking delusions. These situations did in fact and indeed happen. The fact is, because none of them came forward, none of them even tried. None of them tried to listen. Their own fucking drug addictions got in the way. Like Mandy Hughes, for example. Sorry, Mandy Singer, for example. Before Natalie died, she wanted help finding her missing son. And I helped find her missing son. And while I was treated like the post that I made about Mandy Singer's missing son and Shauna Sinclair's missing daughter, well, I was treated like those were about Natalie Bollinger and harassed repeatedly by her fucking mother. Nobody gave a shit. Somehow magically that shit's fucking okay. Somehow magically you just pretend that it never happened and it makes it okay. No, it's not fucking okay. When you deny a person the right to turn in their fucking predators because they're disabled, you're a special kind of fucked up. Last night with the stuff with Chris, I can absolutely verify the evidence that he showed me and the things that he told me. I can verify that he showed me that evidence. I can verify that he told me those things. That's where most of these people have issues. They don't try to collect evidence. They don't try to do it the legal way or the legal route. And they want to reinterpret everything that I'm saying into their laziness, their unwillingness. Now, as far as Chris goes, he did keep his word on one thing a couple of days ago. But as far as listening to understand and looking at evidence, those are the most important things. The most important things are my safety and the preservation of my evidence. And none of you have taken that to heart. None of you have taken that seriously. Not unless I pay you gross amounts of money, and even then, you're not going to come forward. You're going to be too busy chasing tail like Brandon Ratner. Too busy chasing dick like Veronica Randall. Or Stephanie Mejia. Or Ventus Castillo. I don't hate Chris. I hate that he thinks he knows it all and he talks over me. He says he's not passing judgment. No, that's exactly what he's doing. And he doesn't stop to understand that's what he's doing. If you make an assumption that is wrong, you are passing judgment on somebody, especially if you make your decisions based on that assumption. And when you don't allow the person that you've made that assumption about to defend themselves, it doesn't matter that you say, oh, I'm just trying to help. No, fuck you. You're not trying to help. You're being demeaning. You're diminishing me as a human being, letting me know that I don't matter to you. That the only thing that matters to you is the sound of your own voice. When I'm being abused, you expect me to understand. When I'm being abused, you treat me like I'm a fucking retard. I'm only intelligent when it matters, right? Only when it benefits you am I intelligent. The rest of the time I'm a retard. Isn't that right?